Howdy, everyone. Doug Farrar here of Touchdown Wire with Mark Schofield, our Touchdown Wire 5-tool guy. And this is the Touchdown Wire free agency podcast, Mark. And we've got a lot to cover. And oh, by the way, the draft is in 50 days from today.
I saw that this morning, Doug, and it was like the first that I saw when I go through my morning routine of eyes open, grab the phone, check Twitter. I saw the 50 days to the draft tweet and almost just went back to bed.
Yeah.
It was just nightmarish.
We've got a lot of stuff we're preparing for that, as usual, but yeah, free agency now. And I wanted to thank the NFL for announcing the official cap of 182.5 million, like 15 minutes before we recorded this. Nice guy. Before we get started, your all juice team. I want you to explain that. And I knew Therese, the late Therese Paylor, who just such a great guy, Hall of Fame voter, really represented his community and his people so well in his industry. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Therese, I only met him briefly, but get to know people through Twitter.
Yep.
One of the nicest people out there.
Yes.
I mean, just an absolute incredible human being. And one of the things I appreciated most about him, there were so many things, the genuine nature, the humor, but the support he gave so many people that were just getting into this industry. I mean, to share stuff around that I wrote, to comment with, kindly on pieces that I did. I always appreciated it. And this shirt, he had the all juice team, and the breakingtea.com is selling these, and the proceeds are going to the Therese Paylor Scholarship at Howard University, his alma mater. It will be a scholarship awarded to students who are majored in sports journalism. We'll keep
HBCU, by the way.
HBCU, who keep a GPA of 3.0. So you can find these on breakingtea.com. A lot of people have tweeted out the links. I've tweeted it out.
We'll put the link on the podcast.
Yeah.
When we put the thought on Touchdown Wire in the article, we'll put the link there too.
Yeah. And it goes to support a fantastic cause in his name, and just an incredible guy. And between, Therese and Wes, it's been a tough couple of weeks. Two people who I absolutely adored. But if you can pick up an all juice team shirt, it's fantastic, very comfy too, but it supports a tremendous cause for somebody who was a tremendous person who meant so much to so many.
What you mentioned about helping guys who were just getting their start. I remember this from when I just got my start. There were a lot of guys who were at Therese's level or above who just sort of sneer at the guys coming up, and he was never like that. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah. And but both Therese and like when I finally got to meet Chris at last year's combine, it was in the sort of, media day room, swirl of NFL people. And Chris had the ability in our 10-minute conversation to make me feel like the most important person in that room. And you've got like Joe Burrow getting ready to take the podium. You've got, every NFL network, every ESP, everybody's in that. But Chris made me feel like the most important person in the room. And in the interactions I had with Therese, it was the same thing.
Yep.
And not many people do that. But for the people that made it to where they made it to still be able to do that, those are great human beings. And I miss them both.
Yep. It's an important character. I remember people saying about Bill Clinton, one of the reasons he was such a good politician, I'm not different thing, but he could in a minute make you feel like the most important person in the room. It's an interesting and rare skill.
Yeah.
So anyway, on to free agency. 8 players were franchise tagged yesterday, and let's go through them real quick. Taylor Moton, offensive tackle for the Panthers. Justin Simmons, safety for the Denver Broncos. Absolutely no surprise there. He was number 3 on our top 101. Cam Robinson, offensive tackle for the Jaguars. That was a bit of a surprise to me. Leonard Williams, defensive tackle for the New York Giants. Marcus May, safety for the Jets. No surprise there. Top 10 guy. Brandon Sheriff, Washington football team, offensive guard. Only a surprise because of the injury history. Otherwise, he's like a top 3 guard. Just a monster. Chris Godwin, wide receiver for the Buccaneers, who also re-signed Lavonte David. Nice day for them. Allen Robinson, wide receiver, Chicago Bears.
I told you how
they should not be able. The Bears should be prohibited by the NFL from franchising this guy, because going back to Matt McGloin and Christian Hackenberg at Penn State, this man has never had a good NFL quarterback ever. And now he's got, they don't even know, the Bears don't even know who the hell the quarterback's going to be. It could be It could be Foles Bisky. It could be Mac Jones. It could be, I don't know.
Gardner Minshew.
That would actually be the best quarterback he's ever had. I mean, Sam Ellinger would
I'm
be
just
the best
saying, Gardner's
anyway.
going to find a home this offseason.
I hope so. Marcus Williams of the Saints, safety. Leonard Williams and Marcus Williams were on two guys on my buyer beware free agency team, and only because they were so scheme specific to what their teams did. With Williams, it was rushing the passer from all over the place, everywhere from the shade up nose to like almost wide nine. And Patrick Graham was so great. We talked about Patrick Graham, their defensive coordinator, his blitz packages, and Williams really benefited from that as never before. Was such a high draft pick with the Jets. And I maintain that if he had been picked in the mid first round, people wouldn't have called him a bust. It was like, well, he plays like a mid first rounder. He played like a high first rounder for the Giants, and it's good that they re-signed him. And with Marcus Williams, coverage numbers, and the tape would align with this, coverage numbers were wildly inconsistent from year to year. He was like a top 5 guy one year, bottom 5 guy the next. Yeah. Dennis Allen has him kind of in an Eric Weddle role, where he'll play some deep, some slot, some box. But I've seen him, deep, run, screaming with his ass on fire to stop run fits 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage. I was kind of positing in that buyer beware piece that if you wanted to make him your deep third guy, you were making a mistake. Dennis Allen's not going to make that mistake. So he already knows, who Marcus Williams is, what he can do best. So good for those two guys. I wanted to ask you, are there any guys you were surprised weren't tagged? And we have to factor in, like, everyone's going to be surprised that Kenny Golladay wasn't tagged. And oh, by the way, Marvin Jones is also a free agent. So good luck, Jared Goff, who needs good receivers to be, above league average. The Lions with the new cap have like $2 million in cap space. So, unless they cut a bunch of guys somehow, they're in receiver purgatory. But are there other people, given teams with cap space, that you were surprised weren't franchised?
Joe Thuney. That was the one that I think that surprised me the most.
Yeah.
And in a way, I understand it, because I think Shaq Mason's cap number is almost 10 million next year. And if you tag Joe Thuney, you're putting, 26 million into guards.
Plus they've got Trent Williams back now. I don't know what his cap number is. I'll look that up. I know he restructured.
Yeah, he restructured.
With Trent Brown, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and they can do a couple of
Trent Brown. I don't want to. Right. I'm not doing breaking news here.
Right.
That would be good.
I wish they had Trent Williams. But they've got a couple of different options now with Trent Brown back. They could kick Isaiah Wynn inside, although we can have a fun conversation about arm length. Michael Onwenu played at guard.
Well, we're gonna have one when we talk about offensive tackles in the draft.
Yeah, we can save that for another time.
My comp for Rashawn Slater is Isaiah Wynn, so kiss my butt, everybody.
Yeah,
he's
I mean, when a man is doing 540 at the front squat for 3 reps, like this is a superhuman.
Well, that's only because he has short arms or something like that. So Trent Brown's, according to overthecap.com, Trent Brown's cap number for, and if he restructured, this is 14 million.
Yeah.
0 dead money. That's interesting. So yeah, as you said, they've got a lot invested in their offensive line.
Yeah, but I mean, they could have brought Tootie back and give themselves more options, but they've also got to do David Andrews, because I think that's a big one that they have to do. So they're probably just not going to lock up, 26 million in their 2 guards. They're comfortable spending money on the offensive line, and I think they have to. But I think they have options up front, and maybe Kenny Golladay is one of their next wide receivers. Who knows?
Well, someone's got to be. Is Thuney a better gap or zone guy? He looks to me like a gap guy.
He has the feel of a gap guy, but he's athletic enough. They do stuff with him in space. His footwork's good enough that they can do zone stuff. Matt Chatham, who won 3 rings under Bill Belichick, said that the Trent Brown acquisition is a sign that they're going to go more bully ball, gap power type stuff, because obviously Brown's more better.
Which you mentioned, you wrote an article about that yesterday too.
Yeah, and I think Matt's got a good point there. I mean, I'm not, he also went to say that it might mean that they're bringing a pocket passer in, and I don't know if I'm ready to go quite there yet. But as far as like the 21 personnel, what they looked like when they beat the Rams at the Super Bowl, I think that's absolutely right.
Yes.
Like they're gonna really focus on the run game, because either way, you're probably breaking in a new quarterback. So you would like to have the run game as a nice little crutch for a Mac Jones or a Marcus Mariota or whoever, or Gardner Minshew, whoever the quarterback is going to be. They might need a nice run game to lean on. And if you've got, Owenu, Andrews,
so good last year.
Mason, Trent Brown at right tackle, you could run gap power, run downhill behind that all day.
By the way, for those who were listening instead of watching, when Mac Jones came up, I rolled my eyes because I tend to do that. I
cannot wait till the Mac Jones discussions.
Great pocket passer, has no juice outside the pocket, and we will at a later date get into whether that's even possible.
And in the NFL. Side note for the listeners, Doug and I actually had that conversation at around 8:30 a.m. Sunday morning. We started working through our quarterback rankings. And so, stay tuned for those.
Yeah, stay tuned for those. Okay. The one I was surprised by the way, the Patriots with the new $68 million in cap space, and they should spend it all on receivers. And maybe
Kenny Golladay and Hunter Henry.
Here's a side note. Did they jettison Gilmore?
I think they do.
That leads into the guy I was surprised wasn't tagged. One of the 5 best man cornerbacks in the last 2 years. You know what I'm talking about?
I know who you're talking about. I think
William Jackson of the Bengals.
Yeah.
Now, no one knows about this because the Bengals, Lou Anarumo, their defensive coordinator, runs the dumbest, like, why is the safety in the parking lot, stupid ass coverages in the NFL. And I've been beating that drum ever since he was hired. But the stats of the tape show it. William Jackson III is one of the 5 best man cornerbacks in the NFL. Patriots did not play as much man last year. They kind of became a cover 3 team down the stretch. And, the opt-outs and all that. But they still had Gilmore and JC Jackson. If they lose Gilmore, I think they can get William Jackson for a relative bargain. And I would say that in a normal defense, like a functional NFL defense, I would be very surprised that the Bengals, who have $42 million in cap space, did not franchise Jackson to keep him there. But this is the Bengals, and this is their defense, and that's the way it's going to be. Any man-heavy team, get William Jackson on your radar, and you won't be spending as much money as you need to for a man corner. I'm just saying. Let's get into the deals that did happen. Let's start with the JJ Watt deal. It happened a while back, but it's relevant to our conversation. One of the more so Hassan Reddick and Marcus Golden are both impending free agents, by the way, underrated edge rushers, because Cardinals ran a ton of blitz with Vance Joseph. Really interesting defense. We talked about it a lot, blitzes and mugs, and Isaiah started to, he started to look like that guy in certain spaces, but JJ Watt comes in. The Texans played him primarily at edge last year, and he played over 1,000 snaps. The injury thing wasn't a problem. He's going to be 32, and he can still get it done. He was double teamed per next gen stats on 30% of his edge snaps, the highest percentage in the NFL at the position, because the Texans had nobody else in their defensive line. I think the card, Chandler Jones comes back from injury in 2019. Chandler Jones had 19 sacks. So he can still be that guy. He just played 5 games last year. And then Watt can be a primary edge, but I'd move him inside. And here's my reasoning. Say it's 12 steps to the quarterback when you're trying to bend the arc and you're an edge guy. Let's say it's 5 to 7 if you're a 4-eye. And Watt has proven that he can dominate any gap, anywhere. And he looked like that guy last year. I would sign either Reddick or Golden, re-sign them, because what they need in the draft is a cornerback, like badly. And Watt just gives them so many more options than they even already had. And they had like no interior pressure last year. So this makes them, at least as far as their front 7, a very dangerous defense. The defensive backfield is a mess, and they can address that in the draft. Very strong draft for cornerbacks. I think an underrated draft for safeties. Look at the Oregon kid. I'm like, whoa, he could be a second rounder. There are some guys of interest in day 2 and day 3, but I think the Watt deal makes a lot of sense for this team and more sense for Watt than most other teams.
Yeah, I think that's right, Doug. I'm fascinated by the idea of him kicking inside a bit. I wrote about that sort of when it came down. If you think back to last year, a lot of the manufactured pressure they got was those sub packages, 155, 065, all that stuff, where they're just trying to get it done with athletes. But you imagine that sort of 155 with Watt as a shaded nose. I mean, I saw some snaps of him last year where he was a shaded nose. And yeah, sometimes he got doubled because, like you said, Houston didn't have anybody else. It's sort of the Packers reference we made last year, double him and you're fine everywhere else.
Well, you double Kenny Clark and you single everyone else, but then you're singling Zadarius Smith and you're going to have problems. The Texans had nobody.
Right. And so if with Jones back, either Reddick or Golden back, if you're double and Watt, you're giving those guys, 1-versus-1 situations.
Yep.
And those guys have the ability to win one-on-one matchups. Then you're talking about, you got to keep people in protection. And now what that does is, as you figure things out of the back end, if you've got to keep a tight end in, if you've got to keep a back in, now you're playing with numbers in the Arizona secondary.
Yeah.
You combine that with the depth of corner, do they go corner first round? Maybe.
Oh God, they have to. Patrick Peterson's a free agent. He ain't coming back. And Byron Murphy in his 2 seasons allowed 10 touchdowns and 1 interception.
Yeah.
I had them going with J.C. Horn, 16. Cardinals play a crap ton of man. They're very aggressive with their corners. J.C. Horn, what did I put it? A mercenary eraser with a Wolverines mentality is how I put it. That's who he is. He's like, aggression-wise, he's like Richard Sherman in a very bad mood, which Sherman usually isn't.
Right.
Despite what you may think, he's usually in a good mood.
No, but I mean, I think that
they need that guy. I would, if I were Cliff Kingsbury and that staff, I would draft defensive backs literally in the first 3 to 4 rounds.
Yeah.
They need 2 corners and 2 safeties.
Yeah. And I think they could double dip at it. It's such a deep draft at corner. But JC Horn, I think, would be great.
Yeah. Let's talk about Dak Prescott. 4 years, $160 million. If Jerry Jones had done this last year, because let's be honest, the landscape after the Mahomes deal, it was like the music business before and after Jimi Hendrix or Eddie Van Halen or Kurt Cobain. Like everything is now different. They probably could have got Dak for $10 million less a year if they had, just bit hard and done it. But in any case, Prescott has already done more than enough to be considered a franchise quarterback. From 2016 to 2019, his first 4 seasons, he ranked 7th in the league in passing attempts, 7th in completion, 6th in passing yards, and 8th in passing touchdowns, 36 interceptions, tied with Matthew Stafford for the 6th lowest total over that time among quarterbacks with at least 1,500 passing attempts. Prescott also ranked 6th in adjusted net yards per attempt, 7th in yards per completion, and 7th in passer rating. So when we talk about like the pantheon of quarterbacks, usually what we do, what you and I have done on podcasts and in discussions and articles, it's like, who are the top 5?
Right.
Statistically, Dak is like knocking on the door going, hey. And, in 2020, played in 5 games, had the gruesome ankle injury in week 5 against the Giants, which, ouch. Prescott ranked 1st in attempts, 1st in completions, 1st in passing yards, and tied for 7th in passing touchdowns. Now that's interesting. 1st in attempts, 1st in completions, 1st in passing yards with CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, and Michael Gallup, and you're 7th in passing touchdowns. Now, with Mike McCarthy in their control of the offense, it obviously, and Kellen Moore, it had switched from Ezekiel Elliott to Dak Prescott. They want Dak to be the guy. So I'm looking at the touchdowns and I'm like, yeah, he's got some throws that are just insane, and you're a quarterback guy. The 4 interceptions last season, my notes where he overthrew Elliott on a little outlet route against the Giants. I think he caught a touchdown pass against the Giants too on a Philly special, by the way. Against the Browns, Denzel Ward jumped an in-cut to Amari Cooper where it looked like Dak threw it a hair late. Against the Seahawks, a quick slant to Cooper where Shaquille Griffin jumped the route and it looked like it was a hair late. Are we sensing a trend here? And then he threw up a block of cheese in the end zone against the Seahawks. We're just trying to get something. I don't count that. That's just, hell with it. He almost got sacked. He's running around. He was just trying to score points. So I don't really count that. But when I watch a quarterback's incompletions and interceptions, and I make a note of a hair late more than once, I start to think, does he have a problem throwing with anticipation? And is that the thing that keeps him out of the pantheonic top 5?
I think he does have an anticipation problem. I think it's something that's dated back to his days at Mississippi State. It's something that he's been working on, and it's gotten better over the years.
Now, I will say this. He had a touchdown against the Browns where the window was like 2 feet with 2 converging defenders, and he nailed that throw. So when I say anticipation, that's not, I don't know if that's anticipation because he's not throwing to a receiver who wasn't there. That to me is more see it, throw it. And maybe he's the best see it and throw it guy in the NFL. You can win with see it and throw it.
Yeah.
But the anticipation thing, I can't think of a top level Hall of Fame quarterback who doesn't throw with anticipation.
Right. It's one of those necessary things. I think he's gotten better. If you watch that Atlanta game, he had a throw in that Atlanta game on a dig route that was the best anticipation throw I think I've seen him make in his entire NFL career.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying it's like a constant.
Yeah, it's getting better. I think more than anything else, this Prescott deal is just a reminder that the cost of doing business at the quarterback position is just different. Yep. It's just absolutely different. And I keep telling people that if you're shocked by the tag here, if you're shocked by the sticker price, give it 5 weeks. It's like the weather in New England because it's going to change.
Wait until Lamar's deal.
Right. Wait until look. The 2 happiest people on the planet right now are Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen because they're looking at this and thinking, what am I going to get? 50
you know who the happiest guy in the world is Tom Telesco because he's like, I got Justin Herbert for 3 more years, baby.
Exactly.
Boom.
The cost of just doing business. And if you think this is expensive, try replacing a quarterback because that's even more expensive if you don't get the rookie pick right. And Dallas is sitting 11 in the draft.
Yeah.
Like they're not
10, I think. Well, they and I have them. I think we both had them taking, cornerback 1 or 2 because knows they need it.
Yeah.
And it's, that's why teams clench to the average quarterback. And average quarterback's the ultimate market inefficiency. You give Goff all that money. You give Wentz all that money. You give Garoppolo, for God's sake, all that money just because, hey, at least I know what I have. And then you don't. Now, I'm not saying Prescott's not that guy. Prescott is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I'm picking nits here because whether that money represents top 5 or not, and as you said, I don't think it will. If we're looking at Dak as, okay, going forward, what can he be? And I think if he solves the anticipation issue, I don't have any other guy can make every throw. He's got a plus arm, plus mobility, plus everything. And he's got maybe the best 3 receiver core in the NFL. So everything else lines up. He's got Mike McCarthy as hopefully Kellen Moore is drawing up the playbook, but that's a different story.
Yeah. I think Dak is not the sort of Andy Dalton quarterback purgatory example that of alluded to there.
He's way
Dak is knocking on the door of elite. He's in that conversation.
And there are times when he is. There are times when he'll have those Aaron Rodgers days. You're just like, holy sheesh. He's
and if you're looking at sort of what is necessary to be a successful quarterback in the NFL in today's game, that mobility piece is a huge part of it.
Yes. It's not just running around. It's being able to realign in your head after things go bad.
Yeah.
The unstructured time. Outside the pocket. It's not just running around, it's squaring your shoulders. Your receivers know to adjust to your scramble drills. So Amari Cooper's there, CD Lamb is there, whoever's there, and it works. That's what he already has that.
Yep. And that in today's NFL is more important than many other things that quarterbacks do.
So what I finally wrote was not that he's terrible with anticipation. There are some stupid good throws into converging coverages. You just like to see the internal clock be a hair more exact. That's all.
Yeah. And I think I'm not worried about Dak.
No, I'm not.
To be fair, I probably said that about Wentz maybe a year and a half ago. So maybe my word's not to be counted here.
It's like missing on Justin Herbert coming out of Oregon. Sometimes you just don't know. Yeah. You don't know what you don't know. And nobody thought Wentz would be that.
As somebody that missed on Dak when he was coming out, I missed on him bad.
The only guy I knew who nailed Dak was Greg Cosell.
Yeah.
Greg Cosell, I remember him telling me, we're talking about we had better look at Dak Prescott. I'm like, who? So I went and watched him. Oh, okay. I thought he looked kind of logy running around, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dak, top 7 quarterback statistically, top 3 quarterback at times. And then, he's never, he's not Goff, he's not Wentz, he's not Garoppolo. There's no real problem here. But when a guy gets a deal like that, and if he had been healthy last year, he would have led
that team's in the playoffs.
Well, also, he would have been way high up in every statistical category. This would not have been Ezekiel Elliott's team anymore. That's just the way it is. And then the Buccaneers signed Lavonte David to a 2-year deal. I think our 5-year deal with a bunch of voidable years. The cap hit this year is $3 million, which is nice job. And the Buccaneers have, they're $5 million in the hole, so they got to figure out some stuff.
They've got to do some stuff. I guess. I don't know how they get Shaq Barrett back.
They don't. This is why. Well, Shaq Barrett was on with Adam Schein of Sirius NFL Radio like a month ago and said, "I want to cash in." This is why everyone in their mocks has the Buccaneers taking an edge rusher with the 32nd overall pick, because you have Vita Vea, you got probably Stu wants to come back, and they can get him for relatively cheap. Jason Pierre-Paul's there. You put a quick guy in there, and it's not like Shaq Barrett is just some guy who's immediately replaceable, but this was a guy, he was a backup linebacker in Denver for like 5 years, and then he gets in Todd Bowles' system and wham, 19 sacks. So there you go. I don't think they get Barrett back, but getting, they franchise Chris Godwin, good move there. And they get Lavonte David back, which I think I had him as our number 4 overall free agent.
Yeah.
And had he hit the open market for the need for run and chase linebackers who know how to play run and chase at the NFL level, I'm taking, if I have a choice between him and Micah Parsons and the kid from Notre Dame, I'm taking him every time, because he was on Travis Kelce like white on rice in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That's hard to do for anybody. They didn't have to bracket Kelce because Lavonte David played his ass off. So now you got Lavonte David and Devin White back together again for the first time, and Todd Bowles is a happy guy.
Yep.
Which is kind of nifty. So we originally did a top 101 free agents, and then I went back and did another listicle to the 51 best left. And I wanted to go over, you did offense, I did defense. So Kenny Galladay is number 1. Yep. And you made the point that he's scheme transcendent. And so go into I think he's why, and then how many scheme transcendent receivers are there really in the NFL? I think there's maybe 10, and I may be generous there.
The thing that I love about Galladay, and I've got examples of it in the piece, whether it's quick game, whether it's working over the middle, whether it's vertical game, like he can give you everything you need a wide receiver to do. He can give you the full route tree. And I know, full route tree gets overblown, particularly around draft time, because some of these guys run like, I was having a conversation about Dwayne Eskridge this morning. He runs like 3 routes, but he runs them well. And so, it's the age old, tell me what a guy can do. But
with the Lions, Stafford had so many different offensive coordinators, so many different offensive systems. You're talking about the need to run every route, whether it's in this system or the last one or the next one.
Right. But Galladay can do everything. And, I think Robinson was similar. He was also very scheme diverse. You could do quick game. He could beat press. He was good downfield, good working in the intermediate game, also good over the middle. I think when you get down the list of these wide receivers, like you get to a guy like Juju, I think he's more like West Coast.
Yeah.
Like you
need a specific offense. He's 80% slot, isn't he?
Yeah. He slants, he's quick game. You could scheme some shot plays. You could scheme slot fade and stuff like that for him. You could run him on 4 verts and things like that, but he's not going to be your ball winning X. Like Galladay can be on 1 down, a ball winning X. And on 3rd down, you could kick him and slide into the slot if you wanted to. Like he can fit in almost any mold. And when you think about, the teams that need receiver help, New England, the Giants, maybe Jacksonville, the Jets, teams that have money to spend, Galladay is going to have a fantastic next week of his life.
Jaguars, by the way, have 73 million in cap space. The Jets have 69. The Patriots have 68.
Those are your top 3.
The Colts could use that guy.
Imagine him. Pittman.
Lord knows the Bengals could use that guy.
Yeah. There are a number of teams that are going to come calling. I'm putting my pin in this right now. Jacksonville is going to be very good next year. Jacksonville is going to be very good. They have so much money to spend. 6 picks in the top 100. that's going to be a good team, especially if they sign Galladay.
In our last podcast, we discussed my issues with Urban Meyer. I have my doubts.
I mean, yeah, there are concerns with Urban Meyer, obviously. But
I'm not even talking about the off-field crap and who he recruited, whatever. I don't want to, that's a whole different podcast.
Right. But I'm just talking in terms of cap space and draft capital. They've got a ton of both.
Well, the problem they have is they had the number one defense in 2017. People forget this. And then they brought in Tom Coughlin, who decided that everyone should get the hell off his lawn. And now all those guys are gone.
Yeah.
So they have to rebuild their entire defense, and they have the money to do it. But, that's a lot to ask in one year. So our number two guy on offense, Trent Williams. I saw a thing where somebody's asking him about returning to San Francisco, and he said something to the effect of, "You're on the right track," which would be very good news for the Niners. Now the 49ers have 23 million in cap space, so they could do that. They also have to replace their entire secondary because everyone's a free agent. Sherman, Verrett, Kwan Williams, and Jaquiski Tartt are all free agents.
And they have to figure out quarterback too.
Well, the thing about Garoppolo is it's 26 million if they keep him and 2.8 million in cap hit if they jettison him. I don't even know why the hell he's still there.
Beats me.
Maybe they just want to make a official new league year thing. Maybe. I mean, Kyle Shanahan has said all the right things about we believe in Jimmy. Jimmy's our guy. Come on. How can Jimmy be your guy? He's been injured a lot. He still can't read middle of the field closed.
Nope.
Still. He's been in the league how long?
Long enough.
Come on. So Trent Williams could come back. You had said in scanning through Masterclass.
He's such a technician.
Reference, by the way. I mean, he is the guy.
Yeah. I mean, look, and to come back after the layoff too, and be as technically sound and at times dominant as he was. I saw some people I think it was Steven Ruiz who was making the argument that he should have been comeback player of the year. I voted for Alex Smith. I will put that out there. And I said before the season started that if Alex Smith didn't even take a snap, he should get it.
Yeah.
But there's an interesting case that Steven's getting to here, that Williams had a year off, had the cancer situation, a ridiculously bad situation here in Washington, and he comes back and plays like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The number 3 guy and my number 1 defensive guy is the aforementioned Mr. Shaquille Barrett. He's not coming back to Tampa Bay. He wants 20 million a year. And whether he gets that in this enclosed space, probably not. You had made the argument that he should have been the MVP of Super Bowl 55. That whole playoff run, I mean, what he did to Aaron Rodgers was just not safe for work. He is an elite edge rusher. His problem is there are other elite edge rushers on the market, and there are a ton of potentially elite edge rushers in the draft. I don't think he goes back to Tampa Bay, but I don't think the market for him is going to be what he wants. I think maybe he gets 14 to 15 million a year, and he's not, he was the backup in Denver for a long time, but it was, it was Von Miller and Chubb. So, okay. And obviously Von Miller is a future Hall of Famer. You draft Chubb that high, you're not going to throw Shaquille Barrett in there. He was very good when he was used, and then he became the guy in Tampa Bay, and good for him. So I don't think there's any dings here. I think he is a plus speed rusher from the edge. I just don't think he's going to get the 20 million he wants. The only reason for that is because of the 182.5 million. Were I him, I would, if the Colts or someone or Titans, teams in desperate need of edge pressure, Seahawks were, 1 million or 1 year, 12 million. I say, okay, I'll bet on myself and I'll get my 20 million next year, because next year it's possible.
Do you think a lot of people have said that we're going to see a lot of 1 year deals?
We're going to see a lot. You know what? We're going to see a ton of releases in the next. Well, we're already seeing restructures. The Steelers have done a lot. Saints are starting to. We're going to see a lot of releases of older guys on the fringe.
Yeah.
And then you'll see who's scheme specific and who isn't, and who benefits from it and who doesn't.
Saints actually just released Quan Alexander, or they're going to
in the
next couple of days. So yeah, that's starting.
So we'll see a lot of that. I think we'll see a lot of 1 year deals, or deals like Lavonte David got, which I think was 5 with
but with 3 voidable years.
Right.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And that makes sense because no one saw COVID coming to this degree.
Yeah.
No one saw what it would do to attendance and the and should the NFL have rolled it over from other years to make it more like, because last year it was 198.5. So you're losing 16 million. That's never happened before.
Right.
So, is that an unfair constraint? It's not unfair from team to team because everyone has the same issues. Is it an unfair constraint to lose 16 million cap in 1 year? I would argue, I don't know about unfair, but I think logistically the NFL could have done a better job with that. That's just
no.
Number 4 in our 51, no surprise because you did it, Joe Tooney. So yeah, he's the guy. Number 5, Hunter Henry. He's another one. The only thing that's keeping him from probably 14 million a year is injuries.
Yeah, but unless you get Kyle Pitts, you're not getting a tight end that's going to contribute the way Hunter Henry could this year. So Hunter Henry's going to get paid.
Yes, he is. Another guy who's going to get paid was franchised last year. My second highest defensive player, safety Anthony Harris. And he had in 2019, allowed 14 catches on 20 targets for 164 yards, 47 yards after the catch, 7 interceptions and no touchdowns. Last year, he allowed 4 touchdowns and no interceptions. So I went into the tape and a whole bunch of times where he had to run 40 yards downfield because quarterbacks could stand back, look like Ken Stabler in 1976, make a sandwich, watch at least 3 episodes of Tiger King, and then throw the ball.
Yep.
So Harris was just as good as he was last year. Any GM, pro personnel guy, defensive coordinator, anyone who watches the tape or saw the Vikings last year, if you need a legitimate, and there are very few of these guys, a legitimate deep third eraser who can cover from sideline to sideline in a hurry and go. He broke up a pass against the Lions to Mohamed Sanu where Stafford just makes this insane throw to his left.
Yeah.
By the way, Rams fans, the trade was worth all the draft picks. I'm just going to say that. Sean McVay can now open past page 3 of his playbook. But Harris is down there 40 yards downfield against Sanu, reads it perfectly, and nearly comes up with a pick. So, and I think I'm studying safeties now for the draft because we have our different positional lists. And I think of any position, even advanced metrics, even SIS and PFF, you do the best you can. I think statistics are less representative of performance for safeties than any other position. So when you look at Harris on tape, you see a totally different guy. And I think he's going to get, if he gets 15 million a year, I wouldn't be surprised. Or maybe he's one of those guys who takes a 1 year 15 and says, next year I can get paid like whoever.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I'm always a sucker for great safety play.
Oh,
and
so good.
We've talked about Harris for like a year now because we were talking him up this time last year. I think he's fantastic.
Because when you see 7 interceptions, no touchdowns 1 year, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions the next year, the first thing you think is, oh, he's a year away from broadcasting. He's not.
No. Especially look, you mentioned the pass pressure woes that Minnesota had.
They went from 48 to 23 sacks.
Yeah, and they were breaking in rookie corners too.
Yes, they were.
And when you're
safety, I would argue that was still better than Xavier Rhodes and Trey Waynes.
Yeah. But I mean, you've got to cover up a lot of mistakes and mental miscues for young safeties. I mean, from young corners as a safety. That's what he was trying to do.
Yeah, Dancer was good, but there were sometimes we're like, "Whoa, you're definitely a rookie." Ouch.
Yeah.
My next best defensive player, and the dude still got it. And am I biased because I know him? Maybe, I don't know, but Sherman. Richard Sherman. Last year, I mean, like everyone else it was so funny. Everyone in that defensive backfield got hurt except for Jason Verrett, who's been like injured his whole career. It was kind of interesting. Sherman's in 5 games. 4 of them were after he came off injured reserve with a calf injury. He let 8 receptions on 14 targets for 87 yards, 29 yards after the catch, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, an opponent passer rating of 69.6. This after a season where he allowed an opponent passer rating of 45.3. He's going to be 33. I don't think it's a problem because the thing, he's still got what he is the best boundary corner in the NFL. And he has been for a decade. I remember talking to Chris Richard when Richard was the defensive coordinator, and we were talking about throwing a fade against Sherman, and we both just laughed like, don't do that. You could argue that he shorter, quicker, more route exact receivers with angular stuff give him fits. But I saw Keenan Allen do that to him in like 2013. That's just bigger, lankier, longer limb cornerbacks have problems with that.
Yeah.
I think Sherman is 80% of what he was in the LOB days.
Yeah.
And that's a guy, because of age concerns and injury concerns, he may get the 1-year deal and, you know, be able to bet on himself later. But
anytime a veteran player becomes available, Patriots fans tweet out the gif of Bill Belichick walking out of the tunnel at Detroit and refusing to give the little kids the high five.
Mm-hmm.
That is the vision that is playing in my mind right now.
I don't like
because
I don't.
You don't?
No, I don't.
Really?
I don't. I think he needs. Well, it depends on what kind of man they play. And now, again, they were more of a cover 3 team, and if they stick with that, you know, maybe they lose Gilmore, they bring in Sherman, they play more cover 3. That's different.
That's where I'm going with this.
Different.
I think they, you know, if they do,
but if they're playing 25% C0,
yeah, no, and I think those days are gone because, you know, I think you look at their secondary right now, you know, McCourty, you know, Kyle Duggar, Patrick Chung, you know, what they've got at safety, you know, if they do move on from Gilmore, which I think they're going to do, they might still be more of a cover 3 zone type team. Sherman fits in perfectly there.
Yeah.
Like I would absolutely love that.
He has a must listen podcast with Chris Collins.
Yes.
And 2 of the episodes I really enjoyed. They had John Gruden on, and they spent like 5 minutes talking about what a great fit Sherman would be in Gruden's defense with and then he had Brandon Staley on, hearing Sherman Staley talk ball for like 15 minutes uninterrupted was my head exploded.
Yeah.
And then, well, you know, you got Gus Bradley in one place, you got Dan Quinn in another. It's like or former Seattle guys in both Oakland and with the Chargers. And so there was all this unofficial tampering going on in the podcast,
right,
which was pretty cool. So if the Patriots were to go to more a cover 1, cover 3 paradigm, as they did last year, which may have been more out of necessity than, you know, Belichick saying before the season, hey, we're going to do this. I could see that fit. By the way, Patriots, if you're going to do that, look at Javon Holland from Oregon as your deep third guy, because he's pretty good.
Yeah.
Not hearing a lot of talk about him, but it
is started. I've started to see.
I mean, Trevon Moehrig is by far the best safety in this draft class, by far. I had to mock 12 to the Niners. That's how good he is. But the more I watch Javon Holland, and I'm just getting work. I watch Richie Grant and Darius Washington and Andre Sisco, who's like, Andre Sisco is some coach is going to have to tame that dude, but he's fun to watch. Anyway, if the Patriots are looking for a deep third guy, Javon Holland would be an interesting 2nd or 3rd round pick. Just digressing there. Lowest passer rating allowed since lowest passing rating allowed since 2019. Richard Sherman is 2nd at 51.7. You know who's first?
I do.
JC Jackson, 48.
Yep.
So yeah.
They're your 2 cover 3 quarters. New England.
Boom. Do you think Jackson's I mean, he's one of the best man corners in the NFL because that's what they play, and he's really good at that. Is he a good zone corner? Or would he have to sort of flip his hips more and be more?
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to do more of that. Yeah. I think he's had trouble with like double moves, which gets you into that direction.
He's so impactful at that. Now you can play press zone.
Yeah.
And as long as he's like right in your face from step 1, it's okay. He's like William Jackson in that regard. Because like Jackson gave up a 50-yard touchdown when they were playing the Bengals were playing the Texans. And they had him playing 10 yards off because they're the Bengals and they're idiots. Bang. Brandon Cooks just erased him. Yeah. And then every time he was right up in the face of the receiver, wasn't going to happen. Just forget it. Go home. So, yeah. Sherman, New England, that would be interesting. That would be very interesting. Speaking of speed guys, you had Will Fuller the 5th. We now have him at number 8.
Yep.
And your first sentence was speed kills.
Yeah, it does. I mean, look, you can't teach that. You can't coach that. Like, Yes. Is there a concern that, 8 games into the season, you're going to have a hamstring injury that like sidelines him for 4 weeks? Yeah. Yes. Is he sidelined for the first game because of the PED suspension? Yes. But at the same time, if you've got a straight cover 3 aligned corner playing you 7-1, 7 yards off the ball, and you need somebody to run a 9 route right by that guy, that's who Will Fuller is. And he can still do that. And there's still room for that in the National Football League. And so, there are concerns. Maybe he doesn't get the huge deal, but maybe he's another guy that gets that 1 year, $15 million. I'm going to bet on myself kind of contract.
He's brittle.
But look, you need somebody to not run a 9 or an 8. Like, there's your boy.
And let me ask you this. You are the pro personnel director of Team X. You need a deep threat. You're not looking in the draft. Do you take Will Fuller or do you take T.Y. Hilton?
That's tough because I really like what Hilton did last year.
And you had, by the way, you had Fuller way above Hilton, which is why.
Yeah. I mean, I think
that surprised me.
Fuller gives you more upside. Hilton's the safer floor player.
Yeah.
And that gets you into the whole debate. Like, if I'm willing to take a swing, I'm going to take the swing on Fuller. But I do think that you could probably get Hilton at a bit more of a discount. And Hilton was open a lot last year. Like, when I watched him for this, and the stuff I put in were incompletions to show that, like, look, this wasn't a guy that wasn't getting open. He was getting open. He was getting open deep downfield too. It was more of a quarterback issue, I think, than a.
Yeah, they had to put Phillip Rivers' his arm back on for those deep throws.
Yeah.
They had to detach his arm in the pocket and, inflate it and then put it back on.
And Rivers was struggling with that mind-arm connect where it's like, look, I know where it needs to go. I could usually get it here if I release it now, and it's not getting there. And it's tough to learn. He went
from Randy Johnson to Jamie Moyer in a big hurry.
Yeah. Little Mariners reference there.
Yeah.
Those were some good teams, Doug.
Back when they existed, yes.
Those were some good teams.
Oh my God. I was here for the whole thing. Yeah.
What was the year they won 110 or something like that?
116. Tied the record, then lost to the Yankees in the ALCS. Again, they haven't made the playoffs in 20 years, and they've killed my love for baseball. Thank you, Mariners. So we could go on. We have 51 free agents here. Please read the piece. I'm going to stop at 10 with Bud Dupree.
That's what I'm surprised. I guess they didn't have the money, but I was a bit surprised he didn't get tagged.
No, they don't have the money.
They just don't have the money.
They couldn't do it. I mean, they've already repositioned everything as much as they can. They're going to take a guy. I mean, I had them taking Vera Tucker, the kid from USC, guard/tackle, because they also need that. Because they can't afford Villanueva. Pouncey retired. Their left guard. I mean, really, the only guy on that line who's plus is DeCastro, and DeCastro, sadly, probably my number 3 guy outside of Luck and Griffin in that 2012 class. What after all those injuries and age and whatever, but yeah, and you've still got TJ Watt, you've got Cameron Hayward, who can take an entire offensive lineup by himself. Yep. So you've still got that. You can draft an edge guy in the 2nd or 3rd round. I think the class is that deep. And the knock people have on Dupree and why I put him so high is just that. Well, you got TJ Watt, you got Cam Hayward. Well, yeah, but it's like saying that every Alabama quarterback has all these receivers to throw to in the great offensive line. You have to isolate the player.
Yeah.
And he's had at least 42 quarterback pressures every year since 2017. He had 43 in 2020, and his season ended in week 12 due to a torn ACL. Now, you isolate him. He bombed Cam Robinson, who got franchised, and that kind of surprised me. I don't think Cam Robinson is a franchisable player, but that's just me. That Von Miller long arm?
Yeah.
Bud has that.
Yeah. And
then he had, I believe, 2 sacks of Lamar Jackson, where he had to run and chase. And he reminds me a lot of Yannick Ngakoue in Ngakwe's prime. The guy's just going to get effort sacks all over the place. So I don't think he is reliant on great players around him or a specific scheme. It's just that he did benefit from that. But if you ask me, Bud is, he's not. I mean, I'll ask myself the question that I asked you about: would you take Will Fuller or T.Y. Hilton? If would you take Shaq Barrett or Bud Dupree? I'd probably take Shaq Barrett, but I can probably get Bud Dupree for less, and I might do that anyway.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up in Cincinnati if they don't bring Lawson back.
You want him to play for Lou? Why do you hate him? You want him to play for Amaruno? Really? No, I don't like that.
Like Doug's hatred of the Cincinnati defense. I love it.
Have you watched that tape?
I mean,
it's not
as much as you.
It's not hatred. It's just the way it is, man. So we both did underrated free agents. You did offense. I did defense. I want to touch on a few of these. T.Y. Hilton, we discussed. Daryl Williams, offensive tackle for the Buffalo Bills, or at least he was.
Yeah. I mean, I think, he's somebody that took a bet on himself deal. I was impressed when I sort of sat back and watched him both during the season and then again for this. If you're looking at, he might get hurt by the fact that this is a pretty good offensive tackle class.
Yeah.
He might get hurt by the fact that there are some intriguing options in free agency.
Well, I don't know, because I'm doing tackles and, there's obviously, there's Sewell, there's Slater, who I just think is in any other class, he'd be an OT 1+. You got Darius, and then it gets kind of weird. And you get like three guys that I would move inside the guard, like the Michigan kid who just doesn't know what he's doing and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I think it's a strong class for tackles athletically, but as far as fundamentals and technique and being able to like slot in there week one of his rookie season, I think maybe there are four guys.
Yeah. So, Williams is in an interesting position, but I do think the teams that are looking for offensive line help, Jacksonville, Cincinnati, they're going to like him. I think he's going to have some suitors. You can't have enough pass protection in today's NFL. So yeah, I think he's good. Is he great? No. Is he the best tackle in this class? No. But I think teams that need help at that position, like the teams I mentioned, would love him.
Well, he's not Taylor Moton. He's not going to push a guy 40 yards downfield.
No,
Moton is kind of a superhero in that regard. So that's.
But he's got good hands. He's got good technique. Footwork is solid. Just a sturdy, solid NFL tackle. There's nothing wrong with that.
Nope. And then one of your binkies, Gerald Everett. Talk about him.
God, I love Gerald
You love
Everett.
This guy.
I do, and it's absurd.
We could be doing an article about like foreign policy in Estonia, and you would find a way to get a Gerald Everett.
I would.
It's kind of like Haas Juke with you.
It is like Haas Juke. I think Everett is going to benefit from the fact that you can't get tight ends to incorporate into an offense early as a rookie, A, and B, this is a weird tight end class coming out to begin with. I think he fits that mold of like mismatch type tight end. McVay did some fantastic stuff with him having aligned at fullback. But I do think you can move him around. You can put him in the slot. You can use him as YISO. You can put him in line. Like you can put him all over the place. And if Hunter Henry's going to command the money that he's going to command, we all know it. You could get Everett at like a third of that, a half of that. And
so here's the question. If he doesn't go back to LA, who are the teams that are as good scheming tight ends as McVay is? Arthur Smith. Yes. Who else? Belichick or McDaniels?
McDaniels. Yeah. McDaniels comes to mind. I'd be interested. I've always had a soft spot for Christopher Herndon. But that hasn't quite panned out. But that LaFleur system, if they're breaking in Zach Wilson.
Oh, true.
Yeah, I mean, I think
both
the Jets.
LaFleur's actually both LaFleur.
Yeah, I mean,
LaFleur Jr. is now in Detroit, or LaFleur the younger.
I think that there's a way that sort of offense would work. So yeah, I think the Jets would be a good spot for him too.
And then I'll stop with Nelson Egg. Oh, I have to bring up David Andrews because he's a Patriot.
Yeah.
Plus, we have an awesome picture of him spiking the ball after, what was that, a kick return?
No, I think that was the first touchdown of the Miami game this year when Newton scored and handed him the football.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Andrews is great. Very under the radar type of player. Obviously the concern there is the health, both short and long term. He had the thumb injury this past year, but then he missed a season with the blood clots in the lung. But as far as centers go, it's Corey Lindsey and then probably David Andrews.
And Lindsey, by the way, he's 1A. Andrews is what? B+?
Yeah.
B-?
Yeah.
Kind of in there.
but I think he's a solid center. I'm obviously a fan of his game, being a Patriots guy. I think New England brings him back because they'll have issues if they're trying to replace him on the open market. But if he somehow does really get to free agency and you're a team that needs a center, and you take a swing and miss on Lindsey or Alex Mack, even, who's out there.
Yeah.
I know Mack's a little bit older, but he's still a very good NFL center. Andrews would be a nice, plan B, plan C.
And then Nelson Aguilar, guy goes from one place to another, and all of a sudden the dropping people from the top of buildings memes.
And
what's pretty good.
What's interesting is he was so pegged as a West Coast quick game guy coming out.
Yeah.
And everybody thought the scheme fit was perfect with him in Philly. It didn't quite work out. Gruden turns him into more of a vertical threat last year, which was sort of mind blowing. And now he's shown that he was
a better deep threat for them than Henry Ruggs was, which is hilarious.
So you wonder about, now he's got a little bit more scheme versatility. Maybe teams like that a little bit more. Again, I keep coming back to Jacksonville, given that they have so much to spend, but the Jets, maybe New England, Cincinnati. I know there's kind of some overlap with what they've already got in the building, but T. Higgins, Nelson Aguilar, that's not a bad 1-2 right there.
I'm drawing a blank. Who's running the offense in Jacksonville now? I just fell out of my head.
Who did they just get as their OC?
Well, it actually doesn't matter because they're going to.
It's going to be Urban's offense, but
it's going to be what Trevor's.
Oh, wait! You should know this.
Oh God, that's right.
Bevel.
Yep, Bevel. So Bevel's the OC. Meyer's running the show, and it's Trevor Lawrence. Does Aguilar fit what that passing game is going to be?
I think so. I mean, although, one of the interesting things about Trevor Lawrence is that Clemson offense is just, remember last year, the discussions about how the Oregon offense didn't really give us much in terms of evaluating Justin Herbert.
Gave us nothing. My biggest miss ever.
It's something similar, although you do see more NFL concepts in there.
God, yes.
The Mills post route to for the touchdown over the
top. No, they put a tarp over Herbert. That to me is a completely different thing.
Yeah.
That offense should have been put in a shed and just burned.
But I do think that Aguilar's newfound versatility would be a nice fit in Jacksonville.
Yeah. Nice. My underrated defensive free agents, I've got Anthony Harris, who we've discussed, Bud Dupree, we've discussed, William Jackson, we've discussed, Leonard Floyd out of nowhere. And it's one of the reasons Brandon Staley landed the job as the Chargers head coach after just one season as the Rams defensive coordinator. Clear ability to take players and put them in positions to have their best seasons to date. That was certainly true for Darius Williams, who's a top 10 corner and maybe the most underrated player in the NFL, regardless of position. Floyd was a bust with Chicago. No other way to put it. And that's not like the Chicago offense, that's Chicago defense. It's supposed to work.
Yeah.
He comes to the Rams on a 1-year, $10 million deal. Showed improved edge pressure. The surprising thing to me about Floyd in LA as opposed to Chicago, because he came in about 240. He was light and he played light. Mm-hmm. And he was just I think he made secret superstars twice last year. And what I kept pointing out, like there's this one play we have tape example where he gets Deebo Samuel on one of those motion things, like 5 yards behind line of scrimmage, just snuffs him out.
Shouldn't happen.
Awesome run stopper out of nowhere. And then of course he sacked Russell Wilson like literally 6 times in 3 games. So does he go to the Chargers, who, they got Bosa? Ingram is a free agent. Maybe he does that, but that's a guy who kind of came out of nowhere and is going to get a pretty big payday. Yep. Another guy for the Rams, John Johnson III, the safety. He is a really interesting cat because I swear to God, if he used his hands to catch the ball instead of just knocking the crap out of everyone, he'd have 5 interceptions a season. This is a guy who he kind of reminds me of Cam Chancellor in that Cam would have rather knocked a guy out of the game and had a deflection than picked off the ball. That's how Johnson is. And he was also Staley's shot caller on defense. He was the guy running all the calls, all the stuff. So someone's going to get him. Staley was on that Collinsworth Sherman podcast, would not shut up about how much he loved Johnson. And Johnson, there was one play where he nuked Gronk out of a catch. There was another play where he nuked DK Metcalf out of a catch. So you're taking 2 of the most physical receivers, regardless of position in the NFL, and proving a point. That's pretty impressive.
Very impressive. But
go ahead.
I'm more interested about the Detroit edge.
I was just about to get to Romeo.
I was going to tee you up for that.
And I put out, I guess other people are aligned with this. I put out something about how someone's going to sign him for pennies on the dollar compared to other edge guys, and they're going to look really smart. I got like 500 likes. So apparently everyone's on this, and they're begging their favorite teams, GMs, to do this. What I wrote was his performance in 2020 was lost in the rolling ball of bleh that was the Lions defense. Thank you, Matt Patricia. But NFL personnel people should not let this one pass by. 5th season, the undrafted Notre Dame alum, who I think the Giants let go for nothing. 10 sacks, 29 quarterback hits, 30 quarterback hurries, 9 knockdowns, and 3 forced fumbles. 6'4", 236. Long legs, uses them like pistons, kind of like what Carlos Dunlap does, who's also a free agent and is also underrated after Seattle released him.
Yeah.
He will there's a Scouting Academy tweet that I put up where he just is forklifting a guy. And then he jumped over the left tackle to sack Ryan Tannehill. There is an element of one-year production, though. Okwara did have 7.5 sacks and 36 pressures in 2018. No reason to believe he can't repeat or even improve on the 2020 numbers because he's not playing for Matt Patricia. Just saying. A few other guys. Yeah. So Okwara, that's a guy to watch. And maybe he's not going to be, maybe the guys in team facilities are like, well, you idiots may think he's underrated, but we're going to give him, $10 million a year.
Right.
Mike Hilton, cornerback for the Steelers. Troy Hill, 2 cornerback for the Rams, 2 very good zone guys. Michael Davis of the Chargers, who I don't know why people don't talk about him. Probably a top 15 zone corner if you're playing a lot of zone. Carl Lawson, edge guy. I might put Dunlap and Okwara above him. Marcus Golden, who's been underrated for years. Those are my underrated guys on defense. Let's get to your buyer beware guys on offense. And this is, I threw this idea by Mark last week, and I said, buyer beware means someone's going to pay this guy too much, put him in the wrong scheme, and it's going to get someone fired. So your first guy is Mr. LASIK himself, Jameis Winston. Explain.
Yeah, I mean,
why is he even on this list?
30 interceptions.
Well, I mean, but yeah, that's not buyer beware. We don't want him.
Right. I mean, but we also know quarterbacks get overvalued, and
I can fix him is inevitable.
I can fix him.
I can fix him.
And we're going to see that in the draft. We'll see it next year, year after year after year. And I think, look, there's no doubt that Jameis Winston knows what he's supposed to do. It's similar to the Rivers discussion. The mind-arm connection sometimes isn't what it needs to be.
Well, I'll tell you who my pro comp for Jameis was coming out of college. Take one guess. Because this isn't mind-arm. This is Rogue Gene. This is, I don't know if this can be corrected.
I don't know.
I'll
throw out Jeff George. Jay Cutler.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But physical ability to do anything, he will make all the throws, all of them, including the ones that would get your ass fired. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Your number 2 guy, Antonio Brown. The off-field stuff, I don't think we've even peeled that onion yet.
No, we haven't.
It is still
being peeled.
Not what we've said, but I don't think we know the whole story of how bad that really is.
No, I mean, that seemed to spiral out of control quickly. And the concern there is he seems happy and content with Tom Brady by his side. But without Tom Brady by his side, we've seen it spiral.
I know people who know him very well, who have worked with him. And the thing is, no matter what, he's going to be happy and then he's going to be unhappy. And when he's unhappy, you never know from day to day what that's going to look like.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is what it is with him. Next was James Conner.
Yep.
And I think this is more of the scheme fit because I've talked to people around Pittsburgh and you watch him on tape. Like, can he do outside zone stuff? Like, yeah, but he's going to get you what's there. And if it's a play that's going to get you 5 yards, he'll get you 5 yards, but he's not going to get you more. I think he might be at this point right now more of a gap power, maybe inside zone type of guy.
Yeah.
If
maybe
you're
he's a Patriot.
Yeah.
Because that's what they do.
Yeah. I mean, if you're an outside zone team, like, I don't think he's your guy.
Yeah. So you had Brandon Sheriff and Malik Hooker, who I had on my buyer beware list. If Sheriff is healthy, he's a top 3 guard. If Malik Hooker's healthy, he's Earl Thomas.
Yeah.
He's ridiculous. So you just got the health issues there. We discussed Fuller as a buyer beware, which is interesting. Injury history. Let's see. Cam Newton. By the way, Cam Newton should be in Washington. He should be the Washington football team's next quarterback for obvious reasons. Hello, Scott Turner.
Yep.
Cam said of Scott Turner, he's the one guy who understood how I learned. I thought that was a very interesting thing for him to say.
That's fascinating.
Because Cam, he said, I can't he said something to the effect of, I can't process things the way some people do, where it's like, page 1 to page 2. It sort of comes to me when I'm about ready to do it. And people learn differently.
Yeah.
So Scott Turner, instead of saying, why can't you just understand the playbook? Scott Turner, who was Cam's quarterback coach in 18 and 19 and is now the WFT's offensive coordinator, was the one guy who said, well, it doesn't matter how other people learn. I want to know how you learn, and we'll figure it out. And they started with a blank playbook, and they just started to put things in a way that Cam understood. And that's not to say that Cam's remedial in any sense. That's not what we're saying. No. But everybody learns differently. And for Turner to understand how Cam learns and adapt to it, that's a great job by him of getting the best out of his quarterback. And B, has me thinking Scott Turner might be a hell of a head coach someday, if he's already got that.
I think so. Yeah. And
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, look, everybody does learn differently. I mean, in this day and age, so many playbooks are digital.
Yeah.
But I've got over here binders because I have to print them out. Like, I've got binders of playbooks that I have to print out and highlighted stuff. Otherwise I don't learn it. People are just different.
Yep. Juju, we talked about.
Yep.
Yeah. So Joe Flacco, I don't even know who he was on your list, but that's just me. I didn't want to, it's subjective. So when you had Joe
he was
Flacco,
on the list because
okay, whatever.
If you're a team,
if you want to pretend that it's 2015, that's your prerogative.
No, here's why he's on that list. If you're a team that's going to draft a rookie quarterback and you think Joe Flacco can be your bridge/mentor type guy, you're wrong. Because
he wouldn't mentor Lamar Jackson.
He wouldn't mentor Lamar Jackson, and that's not to say he should or shouldn't. It's just that's the facts.
Yeah.
And if you're looking at Joe Flacco as he's going to be our bridge mentor, Alex Smith type quarterback, you're not going to get that. You're not going to get that. And so if you're signing him and you're going to trust the other veteran or your quarterback's coach to mentor the young quarterback, you better know that going in, because Flacco's not going to do it. That's why he's on the list.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I would put Alex Smith ahead of Joe Flacco with everything that Alex Smith has dealt with.
Yeah. I mean, Flacco is not the buyer beware guy. Flacco is the, now that he's released, if you need that bridge type quarterback that's going to be a mentor and pick up the young rookie and make him watch film with you, that's Alex Smith. That's what he did with Mahomes.
I know he had a half a game with the Jets that was decent. I don't even think he's a bridge guy. I mean, he's not the Brooklyn Bridge, he's the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. Look that up and you'll see what I mean.
Yeah.
That's a Washington State reference. So defensive buyer beware, guys. My number one is Trey Hendrickson, who had 13.5 sacks, 11 quarterback hits, 25 quarterback hurries, 23 stops with the Saints. Kind of a one-year thing. Incredibly fast through the pocket. There was one sack he had against the Chiefs where Eric Fisher had to he didn't do the arc thing. He had to bucket step back 5 yards just to deal with how fast Hendrickson was coming in. So if you have an exact specific need for a one-trick pony speed rusher off the edge, and you've got everything else, sign him. But he's great at what he does. He had no scheme versatility, no gap versatility. 17 snaps inside the tackles last season, would get erased by interior linemen when he did stunts. And he had 30 pressures in 2019. So not totally a one-year wonder. I just think, and this is not to say he's a terrible player. This is buyer beware. This is, you had better know what you're getting. Olivier Vernon, same thing. I think he's a rotational guy at this point. Sacks in bunches. He had, He had 2 of Lamar Jackson in week 14, 3 of Carson Wentz in week 11, 2 of Derek Carr in week 8. So that's both good and bad. He got 7 of his 9 sacks against those 3 teams. He had 1 against the Jets, 1 against the Steelers. Shut out from a sack perspective in 9 other games. That would be fine if he was a pressure machine, but he went without a single quarterback hit in 8 games and had just 1 quarterback hurry in 4. So 51 total pressures and 463 pass rushing snaps. I think you cut him down to 250 and you might get 40 total pressures. I think he's a rotational guy. That's just me. Quentin Dunbar. Quentin Dunbar played for the then Redskins in 2019. Halfway through the season, he had a passer rating allowed of 37.9, which was the same as Richard Sherman, which was, I think, second best in the league to J.C. Jackson. So the Seahawks trade for Dunbar, and I'm convinced this, because it's like, this is the guy. It did not, injuries were part of it. Talking to people around that team, a lot of guessing and coverage. So I think Dunbar probably came into a situation, because last year I did the top cornerbacks in man and zone coverage, and there were three guys who made both lists: Stephon Gilmore and Tre'Davious White, who were the two best cornerbacks in the league that year, and Dunbar. It just didn't work out. So maybe he just needs a change of scenery, and maybe it was less his fault, and maybe it was more the injuries. I just think he needs more of a specific thing. Matthew Judon. Now everyone's going to say the Baltimore Ravens blitzed more than anyone else. That's why Judon got all his pressures. That's not entirely true, but per Pro Football Focus, he had 39 unblocked pressures since 2018. 7 more than the next closest edge defender.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. If you're a heavy blitz team, Dolphins, Steelers, Cardinals, Buccaneers, maybe he goes back to Baltimore. But if you're the Chargers, Colts, Browns, Bears, Eagles, you're not going to blitz a lot. You might not want to do that guy. Yeah. Cornerback Rashad Breeland, he had the 4-game, I think it was substance abuse, which was bad for the Chiefs, except that allowed L'Jarius Sneed to come out and be like, whoa, where'd this guy come from?
Right.
The thing about Breeland, his splits are hilarious, because against passes of 20 more air yards last season per Sports Info Solutions, he allowed 2 receptions on 13 targets for 60 yards, no touchdowns, and 1 interception. He had a QBR on deep passes of 6.73. Darius Williams was second with 17. He was the best deep ball cornerback in the NFL last year. On slants, flats, comebacks, digs, outs, curls, short crossers, like anything where you have to change direction, 24 completions on 36 targets for 296 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. The thing about Breeland is you better know where to put him and where not. He's kind of like a dime store Richard Sherman in that regard. Kevin King, everyone's remembering the NFC Championship game, and they should, but this is a guy who I think he has to be hyper aggressive. He has to follow the receiver through every step. If you play him off, it just doesn't work. So, you have to know what that is.
Yeah.
And I'll finish with Shaquille Griffin real quick, former Seahawks corner. He's great until about the last 20% of the route. The click and close is not there. And that's a problem, because he's got splash plays all over the place. He'll make 2 or 3 freaky plays a season where you're like, if you were only to watch those, you'd think this guy is like the best cornerback in the NFL. He's the next Deion Sanders. And then you watch the play to play and it's like, I don't know. That's, so yeah, scheme fit. I always bring up the story of Desmond King. It was a great zone and bad man cornerback with the Chargers, and the Titans traded a 6th round pick for him, and they made him play even more zone. And the Titans, I think, gave up 23 touchdowns and had 1 interception in zone. And got even worse. So talk to me about, the offensive players you reviewed, like scheme fit and just your overall general impressions of that.
I think a prime example is Juju, and we've talked about that, but the quick game, West Coast, slants, outs, pivots, jukes, like that's fantastic for him. Yardage after the catch stuff, but the vertical passing game, probably not what you want to drop him into, build around. And then conversely, you've got Galladay, who's the universal fit, the unicorn, the guy that can pretty much do everything. When you get into sort of the quarterback realm, obviously Cam Newton might be an example there. Like, you're not siding Cam Newton to run West Coast spread. Like, that's just not where he is.
WFT.
Yeah. But like 3-level flood concepts, more intermediate and vertical stuff, back shoulder throws, things like that. Cam could give you that. He'd be very good at it. I'm very curious to see where Cam's up.
Well, it's that kind of offshoot of Earhart Perkins that runs into the 3-digit thing. And
yeah,
there you go.
Yeah. If he comes back to New England, I would not be heartbroken at all. Even though I'd love New England to get a rookie quarterback. I think
they could do. I mean,
my dream scenario is Cam Newton and Trey Lance somehow. Like I would be a happy man.
I am so excited for ND State's Pro Day, which they're spreading over 2 days for some reason.
Yeah, Thursday and Friday, right?
Yeah, and Daniel Jeremiah, I'll finish with this. A few thoughts about defensive scheme fits, but Daniel Jeremiah, NFL Network, former Philadelphia and Baltimore's front office for a while, really respect him. He had the best player comparison for Trey Lance that I've seen, and you probably saw it too. Steve McNair.
Yeah.
Squaring the shoulders outside the pocket. Really, and Trey is bigger than you think he is. Not even a cannon, a freaking howitzer for an arm.
Waldman said that this past summer.
Down to the fact that both of those guys had to go to smaller schools because they wanted to play quarterback instead of safety or whatever.
Yeah.
Which goes all the way back to Warren Moon and, I don't even know.
Having to go to the CFL.
We all know what that means.
Yep.
And we all roll our eyes. Defensive scheme fit, I would say that the Sports Info Solutions database is $99 a month. And you can find out who plays best in man and who plays best in zone. And I would say that every team should invest in that. And the advanced, because we can't get PFF Ultimate, but we know what it is.
Yep.
The teams have it. Pay attention. You don't have to have
password, Seth.
What is the password, Seth?
Seth, give us the password.
Come on, Seth. We say nice things about you. Give us.
We do all the time.
We reference Pro Football Focus in all our articles. Per PFF. From now on, I'm just going to say per PFF, who should give us the ultimate password. Let's just do that in all our articles from now on. But yeah, the Desmond King example, the Rashad Breeland example, the Trey Hendrickson example is huge because if you want a multi-gap guy, that's not who you want. And you got to know that stuff. And every year we see these examples. I did a piece this week about the best college draftable cornerbacks in every type of coverage. And I brought up Treyvon Diggs and oh god darn it,
who's the other guy last year?
The 4th round picks for the Raiders. Just wrote about him. Good Lord, the Louisiana Tech. Please, why am I?
Remember that.
Help!
I'm looking. Why can I not find it?
Oh god, I'm such a dork. I just wrote this article.
Oh, Amik Robertson.
Thank you. Okay, so Trevon Diggs and Amik Robertson were 2 of the most dominant man corners in the NCAA in 2019.
Feisty too.
What's that?
Feisty
as hell. Yeah. They were both drafted by teams who played a lot of zone and B, whose defenses resembled car crashes more often than not, and the Cowboys and the Raiders.
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
Why would
you not know?
I just want to put up for the record, when I did the day 2 draft grades in last year's draft, and I didn't like the Diggs pick for Dallas, a lot of people yelled at me. I said, I don't like this scheme fit unless you're going to make him play a lot of press man. I think I was right about that.
Yeah.
Also,
why do we know and why do they not know? And they're paid.
I could fix it. Also, friends, go back, watch 2019 LSU Alabama, Jamar Chase versus Treyvon Diggs.
Ooh, boy.
We watched that recently and did a video on it. I've watched that game, Doug, probably 25 times at this point because 9 guys won in the first round of last year's draft that played in that game. We're going to see some more, obviously with Chase this year. But Diggs versus Chase was an absolute war.
That's like Balboa Creed 1 or 2.
Yeah. And it was funny because the morning I was rewatching that, Emery Hunt, who we all know and love, who's so smart, he tweeted something completely unrelated, but was like, with all the microaggressions that happen between receivers and corners on a given play, it's a wonder there aren't more like brawls.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, by the way, I'm watching Diggs versus Chase right now. And yeah. And he's like, I don't know how those guys didn't come to blows. There was a play where at the snap, And I actually asked Vass about this because Saban has what he calls the club technique, which is usually in zone, but sometimes in man. And it looks like Diggs comes out of his heels to just throw a punch at Chase right at the snap. But Chase shrugs him off. Diggs goes to the turf. Chase runs a seam route and is wide open, and Burrow hits him. But that game was like,
that's two of the most maniacally competitive players I've seen in the last 5 years.
That game, and
dogs, just dogs. Absolutely.
From Chase's perspective, those times when he didn't have to align against Diggs, he's seeing Patrick Surtain. Yeah. I mean, like when you wonder why SEC guys go early in the draft, that game's why.
Well,
like,
I had Surtain as the best guy in both cover 0 and 2-man. Duh. And I think it was in 2-man in 2019. Surtain was only targeted 3 times in 2-man. So they went against Diggs and Marlon Humphrey. It was like 2 completions and 2 interceptions and 13 targets. So wherever you go, you're wrong. Yeah. By the way, Amik Robertson. Oh God, he had Paul Gunther last year. He got Gus Bradley this year, and Gus Bradley plays like 75% zone. Why just trade him? Trade him to the freaking Cardinals. Why do you want a guy who plays man better than anybody and doesn't play zone in your?
I could coach it.
God darn it. Anyway, we went long, lot to cover. Great stuff, man. We will be back. We'll probably do something post free agency because there'll be a lot to talk about there.
Yep.
And we're doing our
positional reviews.
And we will be doing one podcast for every position: quarterback, running back, etc., etc. So get used to us. We had a little break because Doug had a tummy thing the week of the conference championships, and I wouldn't recommend it. Let's just say that. Oh boy. Yeah. It wasn't Montezuma or anything. It was something else. But yeah, the morning of the conference championship games, stabbing pains in my gut. And I had to tell Neil Coulon, our fearless editor, I don't think I can work today. And
frantic phone calls from Neil.
Yeah.
Like 30 minutes before kickoff.
I worked all day. Yeah. I worked all day through a migraine yesterday. So Neil knew, like, if Doug's not working, he's nearly dead. And I pretty much was. So anyway, we are back on the pods, and I'm back on the men. Good Lord, never experienced anything like that. In any case, a lot to look forward to in free agency and the draft. We did go long.
We did,
stuff, man. And we will talk soon.